Before introducing today's guest, I wanted to share some context on the emergence of a subculture that interests me. There's a subculture of survivalists, preppers, other individuals concerned with the collapse of scenarios in the Western sphere. They could be environmentalists like Extinction Rebellion or doomsday predictors. But there's a whole slew of individuals online sharing and living in different ways about their worry about the collapse of Western society. Many of these individuals have been influenced by James Kunstler, his book The Long Emergency, or Dmitry Orlov's The Five Stages of Collapse. Orlov argues that the United States is on a similar trajectory of post-collapse, similar to what happened to the Soviet Union. Whether or not you agree or disagree, there's interesting lessons from both of these writers. Some individuals are responding by exiting society before they imagine an eventual collapse, while others are exploring alternative ways of living. Douglas Rusoff recently wrote a book called The Survival of the Richest, exploring the escape fantasies of the ultra-rich. There's a common known meme of billionaires like Peter Thiel setting up survival bunkers in the mountains of New Zealand. I wanted to explore and talk to someone at the other end of the spectrum, a minimalist trying to live on the bare minimum, in a nomadic but not unrealistic way. Today, we'll be speaking with Aaron Fletcher, a nomadic eco-small farmhand who's traveling around the Pacific Northwest. He's prototyping and sharing his experiments and living nomadically with minimal resources. He's built sort of a wagon and shares his experiments online, living with a small herd of animals. He trades his labor among farms and connects to local food sources. We can learn a lot from his experiments. He minimizing footprint, connecting to local, building food sources, and building tribes and connections. I wanted to thank Aaron for joining us today and for sharing his unique lifestyle and model of living. While you might not choose to live in his footprints, hopefully you take something away from this conversation. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate you live somewhat of a nomadic lifestyle, so I appreciate your time. Aaron, where are you right now in the world?
I'm in Southern Oregon.
Are you in a city on the coast, or where exactly?
I'm in a city outside of Ashland, Oregon.
Oh, wonderful. And Aaron, how are you living these days?
All right. We just had some lambs that dropped 2 days ago, so we got milk flowing again, finally.
Oh, wonderful. So, Aaron, how do you usually describe yourself to people who aren't familiar with kind of your lifestyle and your environmentalism?
A mobile farmhand, nomadic farmhand, a subsistence dairy shepherd. These are some of the ways that you can't really, none of them are adequate enough to really explain everything that goes on with how I live, but that's the closest ones, I guess.
So, and Aaron, how did you get into this kind of nomadic subsistence lifestyle?
Because just viewing what's written on the economic shit hitting the fan wall, and the need to.
Do you consider yourself more of a prepper, or were you worried about?
I'm an intelligent prepper. I'm not an idiot prepper who's just backstocking stuff and then going about, trying to live off the system and not like taking this transition time to wean themselves from dependence on the system.
And how long have you been kind of living this lifestyle?
I also call that selfish prepper. I call that less intelligent prepping, like the stereotypical bunker and hoarding food, and then going about society and not doing anything to like help yourself or your community become more local food secure or community sufficient in preparation for shit hitting the fan. You're just like waiting for shit to hit the fan, and then you're just waiting to see how long your reserves will last, and then your plan is to just pillage everyone around you, which is like the most unintelligent, and the most selfish way of prepping is the way that I describe it. And what I'm doing is trying to do the exact opposite.
And how are you doing, Aaron, on that?
Hold on a second, I'm gonna rotate. Wagon one started changing directions. There we go. What did you
So,
say?
Aaron, no, I was going to just ask you how would you grade your current intelligent prepping going? What are you?
Well, my intelligent prepping has much more involved than regular people's selfless prepping, because I am having to spearhead the whole fucking movement of like people being nomadic by wagon with producer pets, so that they can calorically stand in for the times that they don't have farms. And in effort to connect with those farms, you're going to need your own supply of food. You're going to need your own wagon in order to haul enough water to go outside of the city for a couple days at a time at least, in order to do roundabouts and meet and greets and try to get farms to work on. And so like what I'm doing is not just worrying about myself. It's like I'm having to simultaneously feel around in the dark for the solutions that work for me, while constantly taking into consideration whether that will be a good option for everyone else, if it's a scalable option, if it's able to be reproduced by the majority of other people. I'm constantly having to check everything like that, and on how what I'm doing will benefit everyone else's following of the movement, whereas everyone else can just worry about their own individual example without having to worry about directing it or anything like that. Like, I got people that are already starting to follow this, and but they're doing exactly what I didn't want to happen, which is like not connect with farms and basically just exploit animals as a petting zoo.
So, Aaron, maybe we can go back in time a little bit. When did you first kind of exit the system? I would say. When did you?
First of all, no one is home free. I don't know if you've seen that definition, but the definition of home free is getting past the problems of our unsustainability. That's the ultimate definition of home free. The classical definition of home free is to get past a problem. Well, the biggest problem that humanity is facing is its unsustainability problem. Not only do the leftists agree that's happening because of global warming, but then the right think that they need local food security to, weather the storm of the economy collapsing and the government waiting out and to offer us a digital currency, social credit score system, new option. So both sides, everyone agrees that the humanity's biggest problem is unsustainability. Just the way that we're defining that and the solutions that we go about that are different. And I myself am advocating a third way of going about it. Like the leftists are claiming that the solution to humanity's unsustainability is to tax everyone into being eco, which is just going to be a tax on the poor, because the rich have always been able to circumvent taxes. So really, all it's going to do is destroy the middle class and create feudalism and fascism and bigger government, however we want to define that. Communism, fascism, they're all the same thing. They're bigger government, stronger government, and less rights for the people. So that's what they're advocating for. And then the right is advocating for us to do like a back to the land agriculture thing, and I think that we should do some kind of a hybrid. Like, I don't believe that the left notion of a solution of communism being exactly the right thing to do. What we need to do is create, instead of centralized communes, or the most centralized version of a commune is communism. What we need to create is, I call it decentralized communes. And essentially it's the same thing as tribes. It's the same thing as the Native Americans had. They knew that when their tribes started to get too large, that they started to have lesser quality representation with their tribe's decision makers, because you can't have someone represent you who you've never met before, because your population of your area is too big for your constituents to have ever even met the representatives. So there's something scientifically already established called Dunbar's number. It's already established by the Western governments, and it was already established by Native Americans and indigenous cultures for thousands of years before we scientifically discovered it and called it Dunbar's number. Dunbar's number is the maximum amount of humans that you can intimately trust and know. And if you try to have populations that are any larger than Dunbar's number, which is roughly anywhere from 150 to 500, then you start to run the risk of having your representatives conspire against the group to destroy egalitarianism, basically, and to create classism.
Aaron, I have a question. So where did you first get interested in kind of living towards a home-free kind of lifestyle?
Towards realizing these things. This is where we need to go. These are the problems. These are the problems that we obviously have before us, and we're being told to cheerlead for communism or cheerlead for fascism. Are the two like options that they give us, far left or far right? And it's both of them are fucking bullshit. Controlled oppositions options being given to us from the top. And so when you take everything off the table on what they're suggesting, and you just consider what is needed, local food security is what's needed, and a homogenizing of the population so that you can facilitate local food production. See, we have a minority of people trying to produce the majority of food, and outside in the rural areas, and those farmers are having their livelihoods worked against from multiple angles by the corporations and the elite in order to monopolize their farms or get them to sell their farms so that they can put them into their monopoly. I don't know if you know that Bill Gates has been the largest farmland owner in America for like 6 months now.
Yeah, I've read some of the questionable actions he's taken. I'm just curious, where do you think?
Well, just take that one factoid that Bill Gates is the largest farmland owner in America, along with his also the second runner-up is BlackRock, which is his corporate buddies. So him and his buddies own the majority of farmland, like collectively, in the United States, while simultaneously he has been on the books, has been openly one of the biggest supporters of genetically modified foods. And he's also been one of the biggest funders of lab-grown meat. And he's talking about wanting to block out the sun in order for our supposed good, when really, when you tie all four of those things together, it's obvious that he's trying to control our food system. So what do we need to do about that? We need to focus on our local food security. How can we best do that? Oh, well, we have a growing population of people who are disgruntled with shitty jobs that are purposeless in the city, and they're on the verge of realizing that what they need to do is to go out of this Babylon. And can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
What they need to be doing is going out of Babylon to either farm themselves, or if they can't afford farming, to farmhand. That's the logical fucking solution to any number of before you nowadays, with just take Bill Gates owning, trying to monopolize the farmland while trying to monopolize our food system. Just taking single bits of what's going on in the news, you can extrapolate that the most intelligent thing to do is to either farm or farmhand. And then from there, if you dwell upon that or pray upon that for further solutions, the next logical thing to address or to try to help in this situation is how to connect the farmers with the farm hands, because no farmer is going to be able to. I mean, they're right now they're being put out of business because of the red tape that the elite are putting on their farmland uses and on their product selling ability and a whole host of other red tape bullshit. Which affordable labor is the biggest would be the biggest contributor to the alleviation of small farmers' financial difficulties nowadays. Affordable labor, and so the most common sense way to bring them affordable labor is with the exact opposite half of the problem is the disgruntled, the growing population of disgruntled people inside the shitties that are increasingly going to be on the precipice of collectively all at the same time realizing that they're stupid but hoodwinked and they need to be hoodwinked by domestication and they need to be working towards rewilding out on their farms through farming or farmhanding. So connecting them is going to be it's going to be necessary for individuals at that time, because most people aren't going to realize they need to do that until after gasoline isn't available and they're not able to like take their leisurely weekend jaunts out, to drive around and try to knock on doors, or there won't be internet available for them to make Craigslist or Facebook ads to connect with those farms. And so the only way that people are going to be able to do that, and the only way they're going to be trying to do that, is by physically walking out of Babylon with rucksacks and wagons, garden carts, whatever the hell they can to hold the supplies they need to get somewhere that they don't feel threatened by the rob, raping, and pillaging. And so
So Aaron, not
to
interrupt you, but how long have you been living kind of towards this kind of self-sustainable kind of farmhand nomadic lifestyle? Maybe 5-7 years, I think, on your blog.
I've had goats. I got goats and dairy goats and started doing packing with them, like pack boxes and backpacks, like 9 years ago now.
And what are your main kind of takeaways that you've learned in terms of why did you not choose to become a permanent base at one location, or what's the advantages of moving around and connecting and
because
travel?
if I go the route of getting my own land, then I couldn't spearhead the example that's needed for the farmhands to get out to me. I can't start a farm without a future supply of affordable farmhands that are willing to work trade for camping and for produce. And so, but that I'm not going to have them if there isn't a hashed out, simplified, foolproof way of putting together the right size. You can't have a wagon any larger than this because you won't be able to pull it. You can't have it any smaller than this because you won't be able to haul enough shit. Like there's certain parameters that need to be hashed out for people so that they can have some guiding parameters on how to do this, so that they can be so they can not starve themselves, and so they can be the saving grace of the small farmers that need their free help.
No, I think it's great that you're sharing so much kind of your inventions and your trials and tribulations on the internet. Have people started traveling with you ever, or do people kind of journey with you, or how have the farms responded to your offer of labor for trade?
The people I'm iffy on who I can take in because of farms. The more people that I have with me, the less inviting people and properties are going to be, because they don't, especially if it's like multiple guys. If it was like a group of more females, then obviously they're going to be have their properties opened up to them way more. So I personally think that people should not. I'm trying to make this so simple that people don't need to apprentice or don't need to do anything like that, because people don't need to.
So
all they need to do is go find a damn farm to work on, and then find two of them. And as soon as you get two of them that are within walking distance, then you start working on building a wagon. And once you get a wagon, then you have something to tether your own dairy animals to. There's a logical order to this.
And what are the benefits of the dairy animals for people who might not know?
You don't starve.
Because of the milk and the production and the meat, obviously.
Because
right?
it's a sustainable source of food. Like all the other sources of food are extremely erratic and seasonal in your ability to harvest them. I mean, gardening, you can harvest once every couple months, to once a season. And chickens, they don't lay in the winter time. They don't lay, period, if you don't supplement them extra grain, and and aren't worth having if you're not supplementing them uh, with the artificial economy's supply of grain. And meat, obviously, like, why would you kill a dairy sheep when it produces just as much calories in milk within 1 month than its entire carcass? Probably within 1 week, actually. Think about it. So it's incredibly. It's been established for the longest time now that dairy is the most efficient way to derive calories sustainably and continuously for hungry people, third world country people. The oldest nonprofit in the United States is an organization called Heifer Organization, and Heifer Organization has been around for like 50 plus years. Literally, they're the oldest nonprofit organization in America that you never heard of, because what they're doing is more legit than any other nonprofit. So all the other nonprofits don't even want to like help spread the word about them, and the government doesn't want the word spread about them, because they're holding a piece of the puzzle of how to actually feed the world, while the government claims to be wanting to feed the world while actually wanting its people to be more dependent on their artificial economy. And Heifer Organization basically found a long time ago that scientifically that dairy animals were the most efficient, quickest, and most efficient, most sustainable, most continuous way to provide calories for third world starving villagers. And so they're American based, but they buy dairy animals for third world villagers, and they give them to them for free, and they give them training. And the only agreement is that once their little starter herd gets big enough to where they're able to create
A surplus.
they're able to as soon as they're able to gift a breeding herd to a neighboring village, then that's their payment, is to basically pay it forward. And so Heifer Organization proved a long time ago that dairy pets are the most efficient way to produce calories for people, food for people, and they based on the pay it forward model, so that it's such a good example. It's such a strong example of how you can actually help people, that none of the other supposed nonprofits, even want to like address them.
So, Aaron, how do the farmhands or the farms? How do you open the relationship with them? You go to the farm and then you say, "Hey, I'm willing to trade, a little campground for."
Craigslist and farm and Craigslist and Facebook ads are the best way currently. Actually, the best way is my Facebook stickers. Have you seen the shirts and the stickers?
No, I haven't. Tell us about those.
Have you checked out the website?
I did. I checked out. I loved your little credit card survival kit. I want to ask
Well,
about that.
the right thing right before that was the Facebook.
Oh, I must have missed
clothing.
it. I think it was that a T-shirt that had your information on it, I think.
Yeah, but my wagon has a huge sticker on the side of it that also says Facebook, and then it has the organized information about me, in which case communicates my farmhanding offer and my services that I offer in exchange for produce and camping.
So, in camping, there's the front country and back country. You're kind of on this third space, maybe in between the front and the back.
What do you mean by front and back? I've heard that terminology.
The front country is when you live in the city, you're kind of really engaged in your job, and the back country is when you really maybe go on a month-long camping trip or month-long kind of excursion, really outside of.
Rural is where it's at. I tell to bring it back full circle to the word that I used earlier, that we need to homogenize humanity. Is that you touched on it? Is that there's the really very, very, very unpopulated desolate areas, And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum. It would be the New York or LA or some of these shitties, and I call them instead of cities, I call them shitties. And so um, coincidentally, both of those areas, the least populated areas and the most populated areas, are both the most dangerous places on the face of the planet, because obviously in the least populated areas, people are inclined to think that they can more think that they can get away with crime and with murder and stuff, and then the paradoxically the most densely populated areas actually have a problem of people all assuming who are witnessing a crime go on that someone else will do something about it, or someone else will call 911. And so they just let the rape go on in the alley below. You've heard about these studies, right?
Yeah, I understand your concept that with so many people ignore what's happening in an underpopulated place. You think no one's watching, so you can get away with things.
Exactly. And then the opposite goes in overly populated. You think that you can get away with things because you can hide in a sea of people after you commit the crime, type thing. And there's various reasons also why overly populated places are also the most dangerous. So what logically we should be doing is redistributing ourselves, especially those of us who are living in the cities while claiming to be against global warming and all this bullshit. You're protesting car use and stuff like that while living in the city is just the stupidest thing in the world. When logically all they have to do is redistribute themselves in a more equal fashion. They like the word equal. Well, stop cluster fucking in the cities. Like just retardedness. Like, come on, people. Like, the obvious thing that we need to be doing is redistributing ourselves in a more even, healthy fashion. In which case, I define that for me personally, and within my network of farms in the future, my decentralized communes that I touched on calling this earlier. All this is related to the same picture that I'm trying to paint. It's just describing different angles of it. But yeah, there's the farms
Do you
are.
think do you think this lifestyle can work for people? I mean, you're a young, able, physically strong individual. Do you think this can work for your grandma or people? How do you think they should?
There's nothing on the face of the planet that is a solution to everything.
That's a good point. Yes, correct. So, who are you then?
This is taking care. This is solving more problems than any other proposition or any other, like the redistribution of disgruntled workers in the cities and homeless people in the cities who are seeking out purpose in their lives, who don't realize quite yet, that the most purposeful thing they can do, and especially if they're, activist-minded people, the most purposeful thing that they can be doing is moving out of the shitties, because the very nature of the shitties is unsustainable. Its nature is unsustainable. The definition of a civilization, of a city, is a area with such a growing population that they have to continually seek resources from further and further away. It's literally the same definition as a cancer. And so everyone who has ever uttered in the last years anything about equality or justice or injustice or anything like that is going to have to realize that they're going to have to shut their fucking mouth and do something actually different in this world, besides just the prescribed top-down demolition of the current government, so that they can bring the whole civilization to their knees, so that it will more willingly accept their social credit score system. You know about the social credit score system, right?
I do. I'm familiar with it, and we can talk
So a
about
lot of
that.
people don't know about that. So that's important for us to touch on. China has been, for the last couple of years, they've been rolling out. Started off in their largest cities. They started this program of called the social credit score system, which is basically just an advancement of our regular credit score system that doesn't just bring into account people's how responsible people are with their payments, their financial payments, like credit wise, but it also takes into account supposedly how responsible they are in every other aspect of their life, all the way down to all the way down to the people that you're talking to and friends with on social networking. If they're rated lower than you, then that actually brings your rating down. And like it's insane. It's tied into your social networking. So if you make a post and it gets more downvotes than it does upvotes, then that subtracts from your overall social credit score. And all these things, even your buying transactions, equate into your social credit score system. And then that social credit score system is used to not just like our simple credit score system that's used to dictate whether you're allowed these certain borrowing abilities, but the social credit score system actually dictates all of your social ability, whether you can buy a freaking plane ticket or even a bus ticket or a train ticket, whether you're allowed to put your kids in a private school, it's Black Mirror to the max, or
Aaron,
communism to the max.
I understand the fears of it. I've done a lot of research into the Chinese credit score, and
You replace your word fear with the word concern, because you should be concerned. And they obviously have, the elite have tried to vilify us into not being concerned by repackaging our concern as fear and, oh, you're just afraid of progress.
no, I understand your concern. I'm
So,
just wondering if the reality of someone living in rural China actually matches more your ideal. Because if you're in rural China and you live in a small community,
no, because what they produce, they don't get to keep. It's communism. It's totalitarianism. They literally are like slaves to their system, except they don't. It's not like a free market system that has more built-in mechanisms to make sure that people can regulate their own values. The values are completely dictated by the government and controlled by the government.
Aaron,
That's not what I'm going for. The rural living that I'm going for is for more like
freedom and decentralized small tribes.
yeah,
I understand.
yeah, Native American tribes. Yeah.
I'm curious,
then,
where do you think at what point do you think young people in the US or in the Western countries became disenfranchised? I'm curious when you think this shift happened towards a kind of, I would call it a doomer viewpoint. I mean, in the 90s, I'm curious
no,
when
it's way before that. I think it started back when they first started disseminating radio newspaper. It started with newspaper and then radio, propaganda that bumpkinized. I call it bumpkinizing. They shamed rural living. They start chipping away at the insecurities of the rural living, sustainable living individuals, as they live backward. They're stupid. They don't know what they're doing. They're not as progressive as us in the city. And so it actually started the demoralization process, which the demoralization process, or the weakening of citizens' self-esteem, is the central problem for the central mechanism by which we've been able to be manipulated this far. That was the foot in the door. All the other problems, like every problem in society, is due to insecurities, because people don't do any of the crimes if they are secure, upright, sitting citizens. People don't rob if they're more confident that they can acquire those things by more honest means. They don't rape or pillage if they think they can get those things by more honest means. It's literally nothing bad happens if people are naturally secure with themselves. And I believe that people's insecurities only come from that they're not it's not natural for people to be insecure. I think that it comes from the artificial economy being manipulated via Hollywood and propaganda in general.
So, Aaron, which models? Who lives the ideal kind of lifestyle? Is it like a Mongolian nomadic yurt kind of lifestyle? Who would? I mean, they have small kind of temporary farming situations plus the animal husbandry. Is that kind of the ideal for you? And
no, all those yurts are dependent on incredibly flat plateau terrains, they were able to haul their yurts from one end of the valley to the step valley to the other. And but yurts are like one of the heaviest historical nomad dwellings, and there's like plenty. It's just so weird. I like people like assume that just because like humans in different cultures had these different shelters, that like that's the height of the possibilities and stuff. It's like we continue to feel out more and more varied primitive so-called options of housing, or hybrids of primitive, because like this in the future, this wagon will probably be steel framed, but it'll have, a thatched roof and with felt on top or something,
Well, I think
That's
one of the things interesting, Aaron, is that you're offering a view for diversification. So there's an option for everyone to choose their own adventure, right? Someone
yeah,
might want.
but within like within certain parameters, there's going to be a general like comparing it to the Mongolians on those flat steppes, and they have their big heavy yurts, but they have their bigger animals that can haul that. We um, we there's other completely other environment here and situation that starts to um, reduce the pool of animals and the pool of possibilities of living down to more specific examples within our American terrain. So I tend to divide it up into goat country and desert country and valley country. So you got like mountain areas that if you're wanting to do something, then you should probably go with goats, and it should probably be more packing related, like not wagon, because there's
No,
more
the
up and down
terrain.
terrain.
Yep.
Yeah, and then in the desert, you're gonna want to have donkeys and a wagon, and in the valleys you're gonna want to have dairy sheep and a wagon, because cows, even mini cows, take like 10 times more water than a dairy sheep, dairy goat, or a donkey. And horses take like double per pound. They take like double the amount of water than those animals too. So the first stipulation on what animal you use is what area you're in, and then of what area you're in, there's only so many animals that are available in America that it reduces you down to the donkey, the goat, and the dairy goat and the dairy sheep.
Aaron, I'm curious, what is your daily kind of life like? Do you have a routine, or what's your usual day to day?
No, I just try to take my sheep off property currently because they don't have enough to eat on the property that we're at, and so we're in town right now at a big old vacant lot that I'm going to prune the trees of. I've got permission to prune the free fruit trees. So a subscriber got me a pruning saw and a saw that also will cut my firewood. So I'm going to come back next week and prune these trees. I was taking a look at them.
Aaron, what's your relationship with? I think you have a Patreon and you have kind of people who support and subscribe. What gave you that idea to do that, or are you just trying to give information out? What's your relationship with those subscribers?
I'm just I I don't I share like posts on there that are more I don't know, like more intimate than like Facebook, and then I rarely, even more rarely, post on YouTube. I just post videos on YouTube usually.
And I'm just curious, are you getting a lot of direction and tips from them in terms of how to live, or where to go, or how to?
No, they're actually really. I'm actually really surprised. I thought that the Patreon was gonna like take up a lot of my time with people like wanting to like be friends and stuff, and like I don't have time for like bullshitting like and normal people talk. Like any conversation that someone tries to shoot the shit with me, I'm gonna turn it into a talk about local food security, and And if I'm not talking about that with someone, then I'm working on it. So, so it's really difficult for me to be in a situation where I'm taking money from someone who expects for me to have to shoot the shit with them.
No, I
I
get
have to.
that.
It's so hard for me to do because I feel like my time every second is so much more valuable than money, because the only thing I'm using money for is to prototype these things. And but the plan is to get this. I'm gonna right now. My plan is to get this donkey, get a donkey to help pull what I'm considering the very upper limit on size and weight of a shitting the fan survival wagon. So basically this size wagon, if you fully loaded it up, had it fully loaded, it would be on the cusp of it being light enough for you to pull yourself in a survival situation, right? And so, but until a survival situation happens, I don't want to pull this thing around, because that's a pain in the ass. And so, but fully loaded is too big for a ram. To go up any hills or anything like that. And so a donkey will allow for me to haul this fully equipped, which I'm almost done fully equipping it. I need to build this drop down bathroom basically on the back end of this. That'll be like a bathroom slash showering area, and that will like really round out the whole example. And as I said, this will be like the heaviest example. And then after I document that example or have someone else document it, then I'll rehome the donkey, go back to just the dairy ram, and I'll be getting rid of like my electronics. And basically I'm going to create the fanciest teeny home example that I can. And then once I do that, then I'll willingly backstep so that people know that this is actually what I want to do. It's not because I can't do that sprinter van thing, or it's not because I can't do a horse and buggy, normal wagon thing. It's because I don't want to, because the actual benefits of having it in this perfect sweet spot is actually is more advantageous. Because for instance, like when I get a donkey takes like 5 to 10 gallons of water a day, whereas my sheep only take 1 gallon a day. We literally only in the summertime we only need to carry 5 gallons maximum for all of us per day, all of us combined. So I'm gonna have to double the amount of water that we're carrying just to have a donkey that can pull a heavier wagon that has a full drop down bathroom. And I'm gonna have that all made out of aluminum. That won't add too much weight on it. But the point is that then the donkey will be rehomed, and then I'll downsize it back down to the the simplest, lightest weight wagon that any normal sized goat or any normal sized ram will be able to pull, because I feel like donkeys are so expensive that if I'm having trouble affording one right now, then that's not scalable. And certainly if it hits a fan and people are wanting to exit the shitties in the same method, they're not going to be able to afford a donkey then, because no one's going to want to sell their donkeys, because donkeys are going to be priceless. So, but dairy goats and dairy sheep, those will be much more common and much more affordable even after shit hits the fan. So that's what I'm doing.
Aaron, what's your relationship with, do you interact with other unhoused kind of people, or do you I'm just curious, who do you see on a daily life? Do you just mainly deal with farmers and other farmhands, or do you have security concerns or things with your cart and your wagon and your life? And I'm just curious.
Well, I am security. That's one of my jobs on the property that I'm at is being eyes on the property that's been ripped off multiple times. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I have a hard time filling in at this point, and reminding people at the right point in my spiel is that one of the other things that a lot of people, it might be more attractive to people, is what I say, than farmhanding, is simple property sitting. Like there is an exponential need for people who have just bought property secondary property outside of town, and they're in transition. They're trying to sell their in town property and move out onto their rural property so that they can start farming it. But in the meantime, the stuff that they have out on that property is getting ripped off, or their rural property is getting squatted by tweakers or whatever. And so there is increasingly openings for people to not only seek purpose by being simple farmhands, but also even simpler, I'd say, is just being property sitters, basically.
And who are these? I mean, there's a lot of drug abuse and drug problems in the U.S. And I mean, are these kind of just pirate people who are just thieves and robbers? Who are these people you're interacting with who are robbing these properties? Just like you said, tweakers, or who? Just general criminals in general, or is it getting worse, or the same? Or I'm just curious what you're.
Oh no, yeah, drugs and crime are just gonna get worse, obviously, especially as cities and counties start to liberalize their crime policies and start to take it easier on criminals, and let them out on cheaper bail and just put them on probation and give them slaps on the wrist and stuff. As they start to legalize drugs like they did here in Oregon, it's just exploded the drug problem. Like, they legalized hard drugs here in Oregon 2 years ago, and it's done nothing but explode the drug problem. Obviously, that's what it was going to do. It's insane.
No, I see Portland, and it's sad how it's just disintegrating. It seems like some of these cities.
Yeah. Yep.
What are some of the more fulfilling kind of? Are people asking, it seems inspiring some of the freedom you are offering in terms of being able to travel and live off the land? Are people responding to that, or how are people responding?
I think that it's just I think that my example is still so much out of the box that people are still kind of like whispering amongst themselves, like, "What's he doing?" What's he doing over there? Should we go over there? Should we check that out? Should we embark on something similar type thing? We'll just wait a little bit while longer and see how it goes for him, type thing.
No, it seems like people.
Meanwhile, though, their learning curve time period is getting crunched down. This is not something you can just go out and like I'm trying to simplify it, but no matter how well I pre-simplify it for everyone and pre-package it with a nice bow, there's still going to be a learning curve.
And what are some of the main lessons you want people to take away if they want to kind of? I mean, obviously, the
connecting with the farms is number one. I mean, you're going to have farms to be based on, not only for your safety but also for legality's sake. I mean, with the freaking lockdowns, it was surprising at first that they weren't that they were like telling everyone else to lock down and stay in their house, but then they were letting like homeless people just like go around freely and camp freely. They totally lifted all camping in the city bans everywhere that I know of. And people just started being able to do whatever the fuck they wanted to. And at the same time, that was when they legalized drugs. And at the same time, nonprofits started handing out hundreds of needles at a time instead of just doing a simple needle exchange where you bring back the one that you got the day before, so you don't end up with a bunch of free ones that you end up just fucking throwing out all over the grass at the playground.
Talking about COVID, what was your experience like during the COVID kind of hysteria or years? I'm surprised they didn't lock us down. I'm surprised they didn't lock down homeless people. And so that gets to the future. In the future, if there's any type of economic collapse, eventually they're going to round up the homeless people into a FEMA camp, or whether they call it a FEMA camp or not, they're going to fucking round up homeless people and not allow for them to fucking camp in the bush and start fires anymore. It's logical, like not only logical on that level, but when you add into it that they, are you familiar with Agenda 2012 or 2020 or 2030?
any of the UN agendas
I am. I just
for climate mitigation and all that bullshit they're talking about? They're talking about in their 2030 plans. Their plans in the long run are to coerce humans into all moving into their smart cities and to uh, rewild the rule zones and to make them um, uninhabitable for humans. Make it to where humans can't even like go in these areas that are like locked down rewilding zones. So
Aaron,
it's
my
obvious.
only recommendation is I grew up in South America and I've experienced sometimes economic collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And people can plan everything they want, and the UN and the central government can plan all kinds of rules and all kinds of things. But when things start to break down, the reality might be very different than. So even if the UN says, you can't leave your 15-minute city, I highly doubt that people will necessarily follow those orders. Just like even the lockdowns, people were visiting their friends, and people are just always looking for a way.
It hinges on it hinges on a majority rules and mob mentality phenomenon that we know is linked to strongly linked to their television propaganda and news. So yeah, while we are very fortunate that people didn't swallow hook, line, and sinker, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve original agreement, and when that turned into 2 years of fucking lockdown in some places, yeah, we're really lucky that we had enough pushback to end it. That's not to disregard the fact that they almost had us.
Correct. Yeah.
In the future, if we have another actual economic collapse, that was the biggest economic hiccup that we've had since this country is founded that I know of. But it's nothing compared to the actual full-on shitting the fan scenario where there's no food on the grocery store shelves, etc. Like people say, "Oh, shit is already at the fan." I'm like, dude, there's still food on the shelf. Just because food is expensive does not mean that shit is at the fan. When there is no food on the shelves, that's when technically shit is at the fan and people are panicking and willing to kill you for your fucking Pop-Tart.
Talking about food, what's your daily? I mean, I saw some of your videos, and you really seem interested in nutrition and foraging and kind of eating a variety of meats. What's your daily kind of approach to nutrition?
Trying to get more and more of my diet on things that can be replicated and are replicated already, ideally already established food substances from my area.
So does that mean just trying to either buy or trade for everything locally, or growing everything, or butchering yourself?
That's the eventual goal is to not have to worry or even be concerned or even look at what the ingredients are on my food, because there is no ingredients on it because it's just produce from my local farmers. Like now you have to look for GMO labeling, and and even that is like super questionable already. People are already like questioning that company that's sanctioning what isn't organic and what isn't GMO. Anyway, the point is that yeah, local foods are the most sustainable, and of the foods that are the most sustainable, dairy is the most sustainable, and
do you
root
have
vegetables.
a lot of resistance from
What?
kind of environmentalists or people who are kind of into the green movement, or do they want you to become vegan? Or I just wonder how you respond to that.
No, most green people who are in environmental stuff, they try their hardest to just ignore me, because if they even start to consider what I'm doing, then it greenwashes their whole life.
What do you mean by greenwashing? I've never heard that term.
You haven't greenwash is I believe it comes from the base word hogwashing, like bullshit.
Oh, got it.
And so it's basically ecological hogwash.
Got it. So people
hogwash.
Yeah, people who
They,
live in Portland and drink almond milk and think, but they still drive the car and they're still
yeah,
participating. Yeah.
yeah, people blocking traffic to protest big oil, but then their whole lives and their diets are dependent on big oil. It's retarded.
Great. So what are some of your goals for this year?
So
Any
those people are going to start hating me next because they won't be able to ignore me. As soon as I get big enough to where they can't ignore me, they're going to start working against me harder than anyone because they're going to hate me more than anything because they won't be able. I'll frustrate them more than their sworn enemies. Like big oil or that right wing agriculturist or that right wing cow farmer, or something like that. Like they're able to like vilify those people in their mind and easily so. So it's like it's easy to just like let their steam off as it comes, let their steam off onto those people, whether it's talking about them or anything. But with anything that's new and uh more reflective on your own life then it makes pressures tend to build up more and and lashings out seem to be bigger. It's the same thing as Gandhi said this the at first they laugh at you and then they ignore you and no, first they ignore you then they laugh at you. I think I've experienced it both ways, so I don't know which way he originally said, but yeah, they'll either laugh at you or ignore you first, then do the other, and then they start to fight against you or work against you.
until they eventually join you. Um,
Or yeah, or yeah, or they kill you.
well, I hope that doesn't come. Aaron,
Yeah.
last question I have is: you have a lot of kind of tinkering and inventiveness. Did you have what attracted you kind of to being such a tinkerer or kind of inventor type person? You're always like tinkering.
MacGyver.
MacGyver, got it. Nice,
Yeah,
80s.
definitely. I love that. That show is my favorite show.
And then where can people, Aaron, find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you for people who are interested in kind of your lifestyle and your philosophy?
123homefree.com has the YouTube channel up on it and any other links that they want to connect with me. But it's the base of the information.
And then my
And
last
hope that
question is, Aaron, are there any other people you're really kind of inspired by or how they're living or people who might, someone living on a boat or in rural, some island somewhere? What's really inspiring you?
there's a couple of farms that I found that have inspired me lately. Like uh that I've seen through YouTube. And yeah, but I haven't seen anyone doing anything like this that's inspiring. The closest thing to it is 3mules .com. He's an old guy that's been traveling with his pack mules for a while, but um, he doesn't work trade for farms. He doesn't advocate for them. He doesn't advocate uh, for hunting or foraging or anything like food sustainability at all. But coincidentally, his whole like spiel is advocating for a nationwide like pedestrian and equestrian trail and bicycle trail, basically that runs along the nation's highways, and which is super along the same freedom lines, so to speak. But it's just awkward that he has never said, and I've read every single one of his posts and videos, watched every video that he has ever made. So he's never like shown or expressed any interest in the local food security while preaching against what he calls the megatropolis. So it's like I know that none of us like the whole point of 123 Home Free, my YouTube channel and website, is that it's a process to become community sufficient and and not reliant on the artificial economy. And none of us are there. But when people don't express an exit plan, but they're advocating so strongly for a part of the exit plan, like it's just, I don't know. He's the closest thing, but I haven't found anyone that inspires me with the food production, except for some small farms on YouTube. But I'm
Great.
looking for it. I'm inspire people. I've actually offered there's a couple people that are traveling with wagons or with their pack animals or whatever, but they're not putting any precedence on local food security. In which case, I've offered a couple of them to buy them goat, a dairy goat or a dairy sheep or something to add towards, and offered, hey, I'll start helping promote your channel if you just start work trading on farms, and like adding that to your traveling so that you're a more holistic example or whatever for people to see. I'll start sharing that, promoting, because we need more examples of that. And it seems that I have done the exact opposite, because none of those people even like respond to me. It's really awkward, actually.
Well, each to their
So,
own, I guess. Oh, Aaron, I
well,
have to go. I really
it
appreciate
gets
your
back. It
time.
gets back to insecurities. Again, all problems in society are due to individuals' insecurities. They likely just wanted to come up with their solutions on their own, and so that, because it doesn't feel as good when we don't come up with things ourselves, and so oftentimes we will cut our nose off to spite our face, so to speak, or shoot ourselves in the foot, because of those insecurities. So yeah, hopefully people can start putting more emphasis on what I call eco nomadism instead of ego nomadism. Like we all have ego involved in our decisions, but the idea is to reduce it. And this problem that I'm just touching on here, lastly, is that people need to be traveling around locally to connect with their local farmers and help network a bartering system between the farms for when shit hits the fan, so that you all have a wide enough spectrum of food to stay happy and healthy, instead of using this time to travel around long distances to like get in your traveling fix and or your ego boost, from being able to say that you're a nomad. It's just so cringy how romanticized ego nomadism still is, and how unknown eco nomadism is that I'm trying to promote. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for helping get these ideas out. Hopefully, some people will listen.